Commander Sarah Chen pressed her face against the observation window of Kepler Station. The blue and green planet below looked peaceful. Too peaceful for what was about to happen. "Commander, we have incoming ships," called Lieutenant Morrison from the communications desk. His voice carried worry that made Chen's stomach twist. Chen turned away from the window. "How many ships, Morrison?" 43 vessels, ma'am. They're big ones. Council warships." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what Council warships meant. Nothing good ever came from their visits. Chen walked to the main display screen. Red dots filled the space around Kepler 442b. Each dot represented a ship that could destroy their small research station with a single shot. "Any word from the Jiraki settlements?" Chen asked. "They're asking what to do, Commander. Their leaders want to know if this is a friendly visit." Chen almost laughed. The Galactic Council never made friendly visits, especially not to species they considered beneath them. The Jiraki had been humanity's first real friends in space. When Earth joined the galactic community 5 years ago, most aliens treated humans like curious pets. The Jiraki were different. They shared their knowledge freely. They taught humans about biotechnology and genetic healing. In return, humans shared their engineering skills and creative problem solving. It was a good partnership. Too good, apparently. "Commander Chen." The voice came through the speakers with cold authority. "This is Admiral Vextar of the Galactic Council Hegemony. You will prepare for immediate inspection." Chen grabbed the microphone. "Admiral, this is a joint research station. We're conducting peaceful scientific work here. Your research is terminated. All human personnel will return to your ship immediately." "What about our Jiraki colleagues?" Silence stretched for long seconds. Then Vextar spoke again. "The Jiraki are no longer your concern." Chen felt ice in her veins. She had heard those words before. During her military training, they taught about the Cathari incident. An entire species that was no longer anyone's concern after the Council decided they were too dangerous. "Morrison, get me a direct line to Earth, emergency priority." "Yes, ma'am." Chen watched the Council ships move into attack formation around the Jiraki habitats. The lizard-like aliens had built beautiful floating cities in the planet's upper atmosphere. Each city housed thousands of families. "I'm sorry, Commander," Morrison said. "They're jamming all communications." "I can't reach Earth." Of course they were. The Council always cut communications first. "Admiral Vextar," Chen tried again. "What are the charges against the Jiraki?" "Violation of genetic purity protocols, unsanctioned biological research, contamination of approved genetic lines." Chen knew those charges were lies. She had worked alongside the Jiraki for 2 years. Their research focused on healing diseases and growing food in hostile environments. They had never done anything that violated Council law. But the Council didn't need real crimes. They just needed excuses. "The Jiraki have committed no crimes," Chen said into the microphone. "They're peaceful researchers. Your opinion is irrelevant, human. You have 10 minutes to evacuate your people." Chen looked around the bridge. Her crew stared back at her with frightened eyes. They all knew what was coming. "Commander," whispered Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's chief scientist. "We can't let this happen. What choice do we have?" Chen replied. "We have one small research vessel. They have a battle fleet." Through the window, Chen could see the Jiraki ships trying to leave their floating cities. The aliens moved slowly, carefully. They believed in following proper procedures even when death was coming for them. Admiral Vextar's voice boomed through the speakers again. "Jiraki vessels, you are ordered to power down your engines and prepare for justice." The Jiraki obeyed. Their ships stopped moving and shut down their weapons. They trusted that the Council would be fair. Chen wanted to scream at them to run. 5 minutes, Commander Chen." Chen made her decision. "Morrison, open a channel to all Jiraki ships." "Commander, they told us not to interfere." "Do it." Morrison's fingers flew over his controls. Channel open. "This is Commander Chen to all Jiraki vessels. Run, get out of here now. Don't wait for Council justice." The response came from Elder Sistak, the Jiraki leader. His voice carried the wisdom of centuries. "Friend Sarah, we have done nothing wrong. We will face their questions with honor. Elder, please. You've seen what happened to other species. The Council doesn't ask questions. They make examples. We cannot run from justice even if that justice is flawed. Our honor demands we face these charges." Chen closed her eyes. The Jiraki valued honor above survival. It was one of the things she admired about them. Today it would get them all killed. Time is up, Commander Chen. Chen opened her eyes and saw council ships moving closer to the Jiraki vessels. Energy weapons were charging. All hands, this is Commander Chen. Evacuate the station immediately. Get to our ship now. Her crew ran for the escape pods and shuttles. Chen stayed on the bridge watching the displays. She couldn't save the Jiraki, but she could witness their murder. Someone had to remember what really happened here. The first shots came without warning. Council ships fired focused energy beams that cut through Jiraki vessels like knives through paper. The peaceful research ships had no shields, no weapons, no chance. Chen watched a floating city die. The energy beam sliced through the center of the habitat. Atmosphere vented into space, carrying thousands of Jiraki with it. Men, women, children, all gone in seconds. No, Chen whispered. Another city died, then another. The council ships fired methodically, destroying every Jiraki structure in the system. They saved the largest city for last. Chen knew that city. She had visited it many times. Elder Sistak lived there with his family. His daughter Kisara had just laid her first eggs. She was so proud, so happy about becoming a mother. The council ship charged its main weapon. Please, Chen said to the empty bridge. Please don't. The beam fired. The city exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the entire planet below. Chen fell to her knees. In 5 minutes, the council had murdered an entire species. Hundreds of thousands of peaceful aliens who had committed no crime except being different. Admiral Vextar's voice filled the bridge one final time. Let this be a lesson to all who would violate council law. Commander Chen, inform your leaders that harboring genetic deviance carries the same penalty. Earth would be wise to remember this demonstration. Chen barely heard him. She stared at the debris field where the Jiraki cities had been. Pieces of metal and organic matter drifted through space. Each piece had once been part of a home, a family, a life. Her communication officer's voice came through her earpiece. Commander, we're ready for departure. Chen stood slowly. Her legs shook, but she forced herself to walk to the shuttle bay. As she left the bridge, she took one last look at the planet below. It was still blue and green. Still beautiful. But now it was a tomb. The shuttle ride back to their ship passed in silence. Chen's crew knew better than to speak. They had all seen the massacre. They all knew they were powerless to stop it. As their small vessel left the Kepler system, Chen made herself a promise. The Jiraki would be remembered. Their story would be told. And somehow, someday, the council would pay for what they had done. She didn't know how. Earth was young and weak compared to the ancient powers of the galaxy. But humans had one advantage the council didn't understand yet. Humans never forgot their friends, and they never forgave their enemies. The emergency session of the Terran Defense Council took place in the deepest bunker beneath Geneva. President Martinez sat at the head of the table, her face pale from the reports coming in from Kepler Station. Fleet Admiral Jackson Torres stood before the massive display screen. The images showed debris fields where Jiraki cities had been. Twisted metal and organic matter floating in the cold of space. How many died? President Martinez asked. Conservative estimate puts it at 300,000, Admiral Torres replied. Men, women, children. The council didn't discriminate. The room fell silent. Around the table sat the leaders of Earth's military and government. They had all read the reports. They had all seen the recordings that Commander Chen managed to transmit before the council jammed communications. What was their crime? Asked General Harrison, head of Earth's ground forces. Genetic research, Torres said. The council claimed they were violating genetic purity laws. That's nonsense, said Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading expert on alien biology. I've reviewed all Jiraki research. They were working on medical treatments and food production. Nothing that threatened anyone. President Martinez leaned forward. Then why did the council attack them? Torres touched his tablet and the display changed to show a galactic map. Because they were our allies. The council has been testing us since we joined the galactic community. They want to know how far they can push humanity. And now they know, General Harrison said grimly. Do they? Torres asked. Because I don't think we've shown them anything yet. The president studied Torres's face. She had known him for 15 years, since his days as a young captain. She had never seen this expression before, cold, calculating, dangerous. What are you suggesting, Admiral? I'm suggesting that the council made a mistake. They killed our friends and expected us to roll over like good little humans. But they don't understand what they're dealing with. Dr. Vasquez pulled up her own files. I've been monitoring communications across the galaxy. The Council sent the same message to every species. Earth has been warned about harboring genetic deviants. Anyone who helps us will face the same fate as the Jiraki. They're trying to isolate us, President Martinez said. Yes, Torres agreed. Standard Council procedure. Destroy the allies, isolate the target, then move in for the kill when resistance seems hopeless. How long do we have? Asked General Harrison. Torres' smile was sharp as a blade. They think they have all the time in the world. The Council believes we'll spend months debating and negotiating. They expect us to beg for mercy and abandon any surviving Jiraki. Are there survivors? President Martinez asked quickly. Dr. Vasquez nodded. My sources say yes. The Council hit the main population centers, but there are hidden colonies, small groups that the Jiraki established for deep space research, maybe a few thousand individuals total. The Council will hunt them down, General Harrison said. Not if we find them first, Torres replied. The President stood and walked to the display screen. She studied the images of destruction, the aftermath of the Council's justice. When she turned back to the room, her face had changed. The politician was gone. In her place stood the former Marine colonel who had fought in the water wars. Admiral Torres, what assets do we have? On paper, not much. 67 ships, mostly light cruisers and destroyers. The Council could field 10 times that number. And off paper? Torres' smile widened. That's where things get interesting. For the past 5 years, while everyone thought we were just building a basic defense fleet, we've been preparing for something like this. He touched his tablet again. The display showed ship designs that looked nothing like standard human vessels. These were sleek, angular craft that seemed built for speed and maneuverability. Meet the Ghost-class stealth destroyer, Torres said. Quantum-encrypted communications, adaptive camouflage hull, and most importantly, designed specifically for human physiology. What does that mean? Asked Dr. Vasquez. It means our ships can pull maneuvers that would turn alien crews into paste. Most species can't handle more than 3 Gs of acceleration. Humans can survive up to 9 Gs with proper equipment. Our new ships are built to use that advantage. General Harrison leaned forward. How many of these ghost ships do we have? 12 operational, 8 more finishing construction. That's not enough to fight the Council fleet. It's enough to save the Jiraki survivors, Torres said. And maybe enough to send a message. President Martinez returned to her seat. What kind of message? The kind that lets the galaxy know humanity doesn't abandon its friends. Dr. Vasquez pulled up another file. I've been analyzing Council communications. They're planning to announce the Jiraki extinction within the week. They want to use it as a warning to other species about the dangers of allying with humans. How long before they find the survivors? The President asked. Days, maybe weeks, Dr. Vasquez replied. The Council has search fleets moving through Jiraki space right now. Torres stood straighter. Madam President, I request permission to launch immediate rescue operations. You want to attack Council forces? I want to save our friends. If the Council gets in the way, that's their choice. The room fell silent again. Everyone understood what Torres was proposing. A direct confrontation with the Galactic Council. It was either the bravest or most foolish thing any human had ever suggested. What are our chances? President Martinez asked. Of saving the Jiraki? Good. Of avoiding a war with the Council? 0. They'll come after Earth. Yes, they will. But Madam President, they were always going to come after Earth. The Jiraki massacre wasn't about genetic purity. It was about putting us in our place. Showing us that we're too small and weak to matter. General Harrison nodded slowly. The Admiral's right. The Council has been planning this since we joined the galactic community. They can't allow a species like humanity to exist freely. What makes us so dangerous? Dr. Vasquez asked. Torres touched his tablet one more time. The display showed footage from human history. Battles where outnumbered forces had achieved impossible victories. Moments when humans had chosen to fight rather than surrender. We don't know when we're beaten, Torres said. Every other species in the galaxy understands hierarchy. They know their place and stay in it. Humans look at impossible odds and see a challenge. The Council rules through fear, General Harrison added. They maintain order by convincing everyone that resistance is hopeless. We threaten that system just by existing. President Martinez stared at the display screen. the images of human defiance mixed with pictures of Jiraki children who would never grow up. "How long do you need to prepare?" she asked Torres. "The rescue fleet can launch in 6 hours. And Earth's defenses? We'll need more time for that. But I have some ideas." The president looked around the table. She saw determination in every face. Fear too, but not the paralyzing kind. The kind that made humans fight harder. "Admiral Torres, you have permission to launch rescue operations. Dr. Vasquez, coordinate with him on survivor locations. General Harrison, begin preparing Earth's defenses." Torres saluted. What do we tell the Council when they demand explanations? President Martinez stood and walked back to the display screen. She looked at the images of her murdered allies one more time. We tell them that humanity doesn't negotiate with murderers. As the meeting broke up, Torres approached the president privately. "Ma'am, you understand what we're starting here? A war we can't win? A war we can't afford to lose," Torres corrected. "The Council thinks they've seen humanity at its worst. They have no idea what we're capable of when we're truly angry." President Martinez nodded. "Then let's show them." Outside the bunker, normal life continued on Earth. People went to work, children went to school, couples fell in love. None of them knew that their leaders had just declared war on the galaxy's most powerful force. But deep in the shipyards of Luna and Mars, crews were working around the clock. New ships were being finished ahead of schedule. Weapons were being loaded. The human war machine was waking up. The Council thought they had delivered a lesson about the price of defying them. Instead, they had just taught humanity what happened to those who murdered their friends. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of the stealth destroyer Shadow's Edge. Around him, 12 of humanity's most advanced ships moved silently through space. Their hulls were dark as the void between stars, invisible to most sensors. "Contact ahead," reported Lieutenant Commander Park from the sensor station. Jiraki life signs detected on the asteroid mining platform. Torres studied the display. The asteroid was barely large enough to support a small colony. Maybe 2,000 Jiraki lived there, working the deep space mining operation that had kept them hidden from the Council's initial sweep. "Any Council ships in the area?" Torres asked. "Negative, sir. But there's heavy communication traffic from the inner system. The Council search fleet is getting closer." Captain Maria Santos approached Torres. She commanded the destroyer Indomitable and had volunteered for the most dangerous part of the mission. "Admiral, my ship is ready to begin evacuation procedures." Torres nodded. This was their third rescue mission in 5 days. They had already saved nearly 4,000 Jiraki survivors from hidden colonies. Each rescue had gotten more dangerous as the Council tightened their search pattern. "Begin transport operations, Captain. We have maybe 6 hours before the Council fleet reaches this sector." Santos returned to her ship while Torres watched the rescue begin. Human shuttles moved carefully between the asteroid and the waiting ships. Each shuttle carried 30 Jiraki refugees who had lost everything when the Council destroyed their homeworld. Torres thought about the first rescue mission. The survivors had been terrified of humans at first. They couldn't understand why Earth would risk war with the Council to save them. Elder Vestak, one of the few surviving leaders, had asked Torres directly, "Why do you do this? We are already dead. The Council has spoken." Torres had looked into the old Jiraki's eyes and seen despair. "Because you're our friends. Humans don't abandon friends, but your species will suffer for this choice, maybe. But we'll suffer with honor." That conversation replayed in Torres' mind as he watched more shuttles dock with the human ships. Each Jiraki they saved was a victory against the Council's genocide. Each life preserved was proof that their sacrifice meant something. "Admiral," called Park, "I'm picking up energy signatures at the edge of the system. Multiple ships moving fast." Torres felt his stomach drop. "Council ships?" "Yes, sir. Looks like a patrol fleet. 6 vessels, heavy cruiser class." Torres grabbed the communication microphone. "All ships, this is Admiral Torres. We have Council forces inbound. Accelerate evacuation procedures." Captain Santos's voice came through the speakers. "Admiral, we still have 800 refugees on the asteroid. We need at least 2 more hours." "We don't have 2 hours, Captain." Torres stared at the tactical display. The Council ships were moving toward the asteroid at full speed. They would arrive in 90 minutes. There was no way to evacuate all the Jiraki in time. "Sir," Park said quietly, "the Council ships are broadcasting surrender demands to the asteroid. They're ordering all Jiraki to prepare for justice." Torres closed his eyes. Justice, the Council's word for murder. Admiral? Santos called again. The Jiraki elders are asking to speak with you. Torres accepted the communication link. Elder Vestak's voice filled the bridge, calm despite the approaching death. Admiral Torres, we thank you for saving so many of our people, but we cannot ask you to sacrifice your ships for those of us who remain. Elder, we're not leaving anyone behind. You must. The Council ships are too strong. Your rescue fleet cannot fight them and survive. Torres looked around his bridge. His crew stared back at him with determined faces. They all knew what they had signed up for. They all understood the risks. Elder, with respect, you don't understand humans very well. Torres switched to the fleet communication channel. All ships, this is the Admiral. We have a choice to make. We can run now and save most of the refugees, or we can stay and try to save them all. Staying means fighting 6 Council heavy cruisers with our 12 destroyers. The responses came back immediately. Indomitable votes to stay and fight. Ghost Runner is with you, Admiral. Silent Strike isn't running from Council bullies. One by one, every captain in the fleet chose to stay. Torres felt pride swell in his chest. This was why humanity would never be defeated. When faced with impossible choices, they chose to do what was right instead of what was safe. All right, people. We're going to try something new. The Council expects us to fight like civilized species. Formation flying, predictable tactics, honorable combat. Torres brought up a tactical plan on the main display. It showed the human ships scattered across the asteroid field in seemingly random positions. We're not going to be civilized. We're going to be human. The evacuation continued at desperate speed while the Council ships approached. With 30 minutes remaining, the first enemy vessels appeared on long-range sensors. All ships, this is Torres. Execute Plan Chaos. The human fleet broke apart. Instead of forming a battle line like proper warships, they scattered into the asteroid field. Each ship found hiding spots among the floating rocks, powered down to minimal energy signatures. Admiral, Park whispered, the Council ships are trying to communicate with us. Put them through. The voice that filled the bridge carried the arrogance of 10,000 years of galactic dominance. Human vessels, this is Council Admiral Kresvar. You are in violation of Genetic Purity Enforcement Zone 7. Withdraw immediately or face destruction. Torres grabbed the microphone. Admiral Kresvar, this is Admiral Torres of the Terran Fleet. We are conducting humanitarian rescue operations. These refugees are under Earth's protection. There are no refugees, human. Only genetic deviants awaiting justice. Your justice looks a lot like murder from where I sit. Silence stretched across space. Then Kresvar spoke again, his voice cold with fury. You will learn the price of defying the Council. All ships, attack formation. Destroy the human vessels. The Council ships moved forward in perfect formation, their energy weapons charged, ready to deliver overwhelming firepower. It was exactly what Torres had hoped they would do. All ships, Torres broadcast on the fleet channel. Wait for my signal. The Council vessels entered the asteroid field, their sensors searching for human ships. They moved slowly, carefully, expecting traditional combat. They got something else entirely. Execute swarm protocol. The human ships exploded from their hiding spots like angry hornets. They came from above, below, and all sides, moving at accelerations that would have killed most alien crews. The Council formation collapsed as ships tried to target enemies coming from every direction. Captain Santos led the first attack wave. Indomitable streaked out of an asteroid shadow and fired full energy bursts into the side of a Council heavy cruiser. The alien ship's shields flared and buckled under the unexpected assault, but Santos didn't stay to finish the fight. Following human doctrine, she vanished back into the asteroid field before the Council ship could return fire. Hit and run, Torres muttered, watching the tactical display. Never give them a fair fight. The Council ships tried to pursue individual human vessels, but the asteroids made formation flying impossible. As soon as they spread out to hunt, they became vulnerable to coordinated attacks. Ghost Runner and Silent Strike caught a Council ship trying to navigate between 2 large asteroids. They hit it from opposite sides simultaneously, overwhelming its defenses. The alien vessel exploded in a ball of superheated plasma. One down, reported Captain Lee from Ghost Runner. But the Council ships were adapting. Admiral Kresvar pulled his remaining vessels back to open space away from the asteroid field. Human ships, Kresvar broadcast. Your cowardly tactics have been noted. But you cannot hide forever, he was right. The Council ships began bombarding the asteroid field with long-range weapons. They couldn't target the human ships directly, but they could destroy the cover that protected them. Asteroids exploded around the human fleet. Torres watched his tactical options disappear one by one as the Council demolished their hiding spots. "Admiral," Santos called, "we've evacuated all the refugees. The Jiraki are safe." Torres smiled grimly. They had accomplished their mission. Now they just had to survive long enough to get the refugees to safety. All ships execute Breakout Formation 7. The human fleet burst from the asteroid field in a coordinated rush. They moved in a complex pattern that confused enemy targeting systems, weaving between Council ships too fast for the aliens to track. But the Council had more ships and more firepower. Energy beams lashed out across space, and the destroyer Wraith's Vengeance took a direct hit. The ship's hull cracked open, venting atmosphere into the void. "Wraith's Vengeance is gone," Park reported. Torres felt each loss like a physical blow. But his ships kept moving, kept fighting. The survivors broke through the Council line and accelerated toward the edge of the system. "Human Admiral," Kresvar called one final time. "You have won this engagement, but you have doomed your species. The Council will not forget this defiance." Torres grabbed the microphone for his own final message. "Tell the Council something for me, Admiral. Tell them that humans have just begun to fight. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace, carrying 800 more Jiraki to safety. Behind them, the Council ships regrouped and sent urgent messages to their superiors. The message was simple. Humanity was no longer following the rules. They were too dangerous to ignore and too stubborn to intimidate. War was coming to the galaxy. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched for nearly a kilometer beneath the artificial sky of Central Station. Supreme Chancellor Mordak stood at the center of the massive chamber, his forearms gesturing as he addressed the assembled representatives of 300 species. "The human infestation has gone too far," Mordak declared, his voice echoing off the crystal walls. "They dare to interfere with Council justice. They shelter genetic deviants. They attack our enforcement fleets." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some voices carried agreement, others concern. The humans had been members of the galactic community for only 5 years, but they had already disrupted the ancient order that had kept peace for millennia. Admiral Vextar approached the speaking platform. His massive frame and battle-scarred hide reminded everyone that the Council's peace came through strength. "Supreme Chancellor, our scouts report that Earth continues to harbor Jiraki survivors. They have established refugee camps on Luna and Mars. The humans openly mock our authority." "How many survivors?" asked Councillor Threshek of the Bentari Collective. "Approximately 7,000 genetic deviants have been recovered by human forces," Vextar replied. "Our enforcement fleets destroyed over 300,000, but the humans have saved enough to continue the contamination." Chancellor Mordak's primary eyes glowed red with anger. 7,000 carriers of genetic chaos, 7,000 threats to the purity that has protected our galaxy for 10,000 years. "What do you propose, Chancellor?" asked Councillor Yuliran of the Stellar Hegemony. "Total cleansing," Mordak replied. "The human homeworld must be sterilized. Their colonies scattered, their species contained before their chaos spreads further." The chamber fell silent. Destroying an entire species was not unheard of in Council history, but it was rare. Usually reserved for threats that could not be contained by any other means. "Chancellor," called a voice from the back of the chamber. "May I speak?" All eyes turned to Ambassador Kel Anner of the Vegan Trade Federation. The insectoid diplomat rarely spoke in Council sessions, preferring to observe and analyze. "You may speak, Ambassador." Kellinor's voice clicked and buzzed through the translation system. "The humans have proven surprisingly resourceful. Their rescue operations succeeded despite overwhelming Council superiority. Perhaps we should consider their capabilities more carefully before committing to total war." Admiral Vextar's laugh boomed through the chamber. "Resourceful? They are clever animals, nothing more. Their small fleet managed to save a few refugees through cowardly hit-and-run tactics. When faced with the full might of the Council armada, they will break like all the others." "How large a fleet do you propose to send?" Kellanner asked. 200 ships, Vextar replied. "The largest battle fleet assembled in 50 years. We will demonstrate to every species in the galaxy what happens to those who defy Council authority." Chancellor Mordak nodded approvingly. "Admiral Vexitar will command the fleet personally." The human homeworld will serve as an example to any species that believes friendship with genetic deviants is acceptable. Across the galaxy, long-range communication arrays carried news of the Council's decision. On Earth, President Martinez received the transmission in her underground command center. The ultimatum was simple and brutal. Surrender all Jiraki refugees within 72 hours, submit to permanent council oversight, and accept the punishment for harboring genetic deviants. Failure to comply would result in the complete sterilization of Earth and all human colonies. They're not even pretending this is about justice anymore, said Dr. Vasquez, reading the transmission details. This is about making an example of us. Admiral Torres studied the tactical projections on the main display. 200 ships. That's more firepower than most galactic wars see. Can we fight them? President Martinez asked. In open space? No, but we're not planning to fight them in open space. Torres touched his control tablet and the display changed to show the Sol system. Every planet, moon, asteroid, and space station was marked with tactical significance. The Council expects us to meet them at the edge of the system with whatever fleet we have. Traditional battle. Formation against formation. They'll destroy us in the first 5 minutes. So what do we do instead? Asked General Harrison. We turn the entire solar system into a weapon. Torres highlighted different areas of the system. For the past month, we've been placing weapons platforms throughout the asteroid belt. Hidden bases on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. Missile launchers in the Kuiper belt. The Council is sailing into the largest minefield in human history. Dr. Vasquez leaned forward. What about civilian populations? Essential personnel are being evacuated to the deep bunkers on Luna and Mars. Everyone else is being moved to the outer colonies. If we lose this fight, at least some humans will survive to remember what happened here. President Martinez walked to the display and touched the image of Earth. Blue and green and beautiful, hanging in the black of space like a jewel. Her homeworld, the birthplace of humanity. How long do we have? The Council fleet will reach Earth in 6 days, Torres replied. They're taking their time, probably expecting us to crack under the pressure and surrender. Will we? Asked General Harrison. Torres smiled, and there was something fierce in his expression. General, 3 weeks ago the Council murdered our allies and expected us to roll over. Instead, we've rescued 7,000 refugees and bloodied their nose in 3 separate engagements. Does that sound like a species that's ready to surrender? The President turned back to her advisors. I need to address the planet. People have a right to know what's coming. 6 hours later, President Martinez stood before cameras that would broadcast her words to every human settlement in the galaxy. She wore her old Marine dress uniform, the one from her days fighting in the water wars. The metal ribbons on her chest reminded everyone that she was no stranger to impossible odds. My fellow humans, she began. 6 days from now, the Galactic Council will arrive at Earth with the largest war fleet ever assembled. They come to punish us for saving our friends. They come to destroy us for refusing to abandon those who trusted us. The camera zoomed in on her face, showing eyes that burned with determination. The Council believes that might makes right. They think that because they are old and powerful, they can murder innocents without consequence. They believe that because we are young and small, we will kneel before their threats. She paused, letting her words sink in across the planet. They are wrong. Images flashed on screens throughout human space. Pictures of Jiraki children playing in the refugee camps on Luna. Video of Elder Vesitok teaching human scientists about biotechnology. Recordings of joint research projects that had benefited both species. We will not surrender our friends to genocidal monsters. We will not bow to tyrants who mistake cruelty for strength. We will not abandon the principles that make us human. The President stepped closer to the camera. The Council thinks they have seen humanity at war. They have no idea what we are capable of when we fight for something greater than ourselves. They will learn. As the broadcast ended, activity throughout the Sol system intensified. Weapons platforms came online. Hidden bases powered up their systems. The human fleet took positions throughout the system, ready to implement tactics that no civilized species would ever consider. On Luna, 7,000 Jiraki refugees watched the human preparations with wonder and terror. Elder Vestak approached the observation windows of the refugee center and stared out at Earth. They are willing to die for us, he said to his aide, young Kisara, who had lost her eggs in the Council massacre. Yes, Elder, but why? Vestak thought about his conversations with Admiral Torres and President Martinez. He thought about the human crew members who had risked their lives in asteroid fields to save Jaraki they had never met. Because, child, they believe that some things are worth dying for. And perhaps if we are very fortunate, some things are worth living for as well. The Council fleet continued its steady approach toward Sol. Admiral Vextar was confident in his overwhelming superiority. 200 ships against maybe 60 human vessels. It would be a slaughter. He had no idea that he was sailing into a trap, designed by a species that had spent its entire history turning disadvantages into weapons. A species that looked at impossible odds and saw opportunities. In 3 days, the galaxy would learn what happened when you threatened humanity's friends. The lesson would be written in fire across the stars. Admiral Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship Dominant Will, watching the primitive blue planet grow larger on the display screens. Behind him, 199 other Council ships moved in perfect formation through the outer reaches of the Sol system. "Scan results, Admiral," reported his tactical officer. "We detect approximately 60 human vessels scattered throughout the system, mostly light cruisers and destroyers." Vextar's 4 eyes gleamed with satisfaction. The humans had exactly the fleet strength their intelligence predicted. This would be even easier than the Jaraki extermination. "Any sign of defensive preparations?" "Minimal, sir. Some weapons platforms in the asteroid belt. A few bases on the outer moons. Nothing that poses a significant threat." "Of course not," Vextar replied. "They know they cannot win. This display is merely pride before the inevitable surrender." On Earth, Admiral Torres watched the Council fleet's approach from his command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Around him, dozens of technicians monitored displays showing every ship, weapon, and sensor in the Sol system. "Council fleet is maintaining standard formation," reported Commander Chen, recently promoted after her rescue mission heroics. "They're taking the direct route toward Earth just like we predicted. Any sign they've detected our hidden assets?" "Negative, sir. The stealth platforms are running silent. The Council scanners are focused on our visible fleet." Torres smiled grimly. The Council's arrogance was about to become their greatest weakness. They saw exactly what they expected to see. A handful of human ships trying to defend their homeworld with courage and desperation. They didn't see the trap. Phase 1 assets. Report status. Voices came from across the system. Asteroid Base 7. Weapons hot and ready. Jupiter Platform Gamma. All systems green. Saturn Ring Station. Missiles armed and locked. Kuiper Belt Strike Force. Standing by. Torres nodded to his communications officer. "Open a channel to the Council flagship." Vextar's massive face appeared on the screen, radiating confidence and contempt. "Human Admiral, I assume you are calling to discuss surrender terms." "Actually, Admiral, I wanted to give you one chance to withdraw your fleet and leave our system peacefully." Vextar's laugh boomed through the speakers. "You threaten me with what? Your pathetic collection of toy ships?" "With justice," Torres replied calmly. "Justice?" Vextar's eyes blazed with fury. "You harbor genetic deviants. You attack Council enforcement fleets. You violate every law of civilized space. The only law we recognize is this: friends protect friends. You murdered our allies. Now you face the consequences." Torres cut the transmission and turned to his fleet commanders. "All units execute Battle Plan Omega." What happened next would be studied in military academies for centuries. The human fleet didn't charge heroically toward the Council formation. Instead, they scattered like leaves in a windstorm, each ship heading toward predetermined positions throughout the system. "Admiral," Vextar's tactical officer called out, "the human ships are running." "Of course they are," Vextar replied. "Order all ships to pursue. We'll hunt them down one by one." The Council fleet broke formation and gave chase. Individual squadrons pursued human ships toward different planets and moons. It was exactly what Torres had hoped they would do. Captain Santos, commanding Indomitable, led a group of Council ships toward the asteroid belt. Her destroyer seemed to be running in panic, engines straining to stay ahead of her pursuers. "They're gaining on us, Captain," her helm officer reported. "Perfect," Santos replied. "Take us into the belt just like we practiced." Indomitable plunged into the asteroid field with 6 Council ships close behind. The aliens followed confidently, their superior firepower making them certain of victory. They flew straight into the largest ambush in human history. Hidden weapons platforms emerged from hollow asteroids all around the Council ships. Energy beams and missile salvos erupted from every direction. The asteroid belt had been turned into a massive weapons system. 3 Council ships died in the first 10 seconds. The survivors tried to retreat, but human ships appeared behind them, cutting off their escape. Santos led the attack, her crew pulling maneuvers that would have killed most alien species. Asteroid Group 7 eliminated, Santos reported to Torres. Similar scenes played out across the Sol system. Council ships that pursued human vessels toward Jupiter found themselves facing weapons platforms hidden in the gas giant's storm systems. The platforms used the planet's own magnetic field to amplify their energy weapons. Near Saturn, Council squadrons chasing human ships suddenly faced missile swarms launched from bases built into the ice rings. The missiles came from every angle, overwhelming point defense systems. But the greatest surprise waited in the Kuiper Belt. Admiral Vextar had kept 50 ships with him as a reserve force. When reports of ambushes started coming in from across the system, he realized he had been deceived. "Impossible," he muttered, staring at the tactical displays. How did they hide so many weapons? "Admiral," his sensor officer called urgently. "We have contacts emerging from the Kuiper Belt. Multiple human ships moving fast." Vextar turned to see 30 human vessels appearing on his scanners. But these weren't the same small destroyers they had been chasing. These were larger, deadlier-looking ships that moved with predatory grace. "Those are not the ships we detected before," his tactical officer said. "Hidden fleet," Vextar growled. They kept their best ships in reserve. Leading the human formation was Admiral Torres himself, commanding the brand-new dreadnought Terran Justice. The ship was larger than anything humanity had built before, bristling with weapons designed specifically to fight Council vessels. "Council fleet," Torres broadcast. "You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and we will accept your withdrawal from human space." Vextar's response was to open fire with every weapon his remaining ships possessed. Energy beams lashed out across space toward the human fleet. But the humans didn't fight like any species the Council had ever faced. Instead of forming a battle line, they scattered into a complex 3-dimensional formation that made targeting nearly impossible. They moved at accelerations that should have been fatal, pulling maneuvers that defied conventional tactics. Terran Justice led the assault, its weapon systems designed to exploit weaknesses in Council ship designs. Human intelligence had studied Council vessels for 5 years, learning every detail of their construction. The human dreadnought's first salvo punched through the flagship's shields and ripped open its hull. Atmosphere vented into space as the mighty dominant will staggered under the assault. But the battle's turning point came from an unexpected source. Commander Chen, monitoring communications from her station on Earth, suddenly straightened in her chair. "Admiral Torres, I'm picking up massive data transmissions. Someone is broadcasting from Council ships." "What kind of transmissions?" "Everything, sir. Complete records of the Jiraki massacre, internal Council communications about the genocide, proof that the charges against the Jiraki were fabricated." Torres grinned fiercely. While the Council had been focused on the battle, human cyber warfare specialists had been infiltrating their communication systems. Every atrocity, every lie, every secret was being broadcast across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds throughout Council space, subject species received the transmissions. They saw the truth about Council justice. They learned about the systematic extermination of peaceful aliens whose only crime was being different. The response was immediate and explosive. Rebellion erupted on dozens of worlds. Species that had submitted to Council rule for millennia suddenly rose up in coordinated revolt. Vextar received the reports with growing horror. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're getting emergency transmissions from across the galaxy. Revolts on Kepler-7, Vega Prime, the Centauri colonies. The subject species are in open rebellion." "How is this possible?" "They know about the Jiraki, sir. Someone transmitted complete records of the massacre." Vexatar turned to stare at the human ships that continued to tear apart his fleet.
"Clever animals," he whispered.
The battle was already over. Most of Vextar's ships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors were trapped between human forces and had no chance of escape. Admiral Torres opened one final communication channel. "Admiral Vextar, your fleet is defeated. Your lies have been exposed. The galaxy now knows the truth about Council justice. You have doomed your species, human. The Council will send 1,000 ships. 10,000. With what? Torres asked. Your subject species are in revolt. Your fleet is destroyed, and the galaxy now knows that the mighty Council can be beaten by a species that has been in space for 5 years. Vexitar looked around his ruined bridge. Emergency lights cast everything in hellish red shadows. His crew stared at him with defeat in their eyes. What are your terms? He asked quietly. Complete withdrawal from human space, recognition of Earth's sovereignty, and a promise that you will never again threaten the Jiraki refugees. And if I refuse? Torres' smile was cold as the space between stars. Then you can explain to whatever's left of the Council how you lost 200 ships to 60 human vessels. Vexitar closed his eyes. In one day, everything the Council had built was crumbling. The careful order that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years was falling apart, because they had underestimated a young species with strange ideas about loyalty and justice. I accept your terms, he said. Across the Sol system, the remaining Council ships powered down their weapons and prepared for surrender. The greatest fleet in galactic history had been defeated by a species that refused to abandon its friends. On Luna, 7,000 Jiraki refugees watched the human victory with tears in their eyes. Elder Vestok pressed his clawed hand against the observation window and spoke to the stars. We are free, he whispered. The humans have made us free. On Earth, President Martinez addressed the planet one final time. The Council came here to teach us a lesson about power. Instead, they learned something about humanity. We don't fight for conquest or domination. We fight for each other. She paused, looking into the camera with eyes that had seen too much death but had never lost hope. Let this be a message to every tyrant in the galaxy. Humanity remembers its friends, and humanity never forgets its enemies. 6 months later, the Galactic Council no longer existed. In its place, the species of the galaxy formed the Democratic Federation, a government based on equality and mutual respect rather than fear and domination. Admiral Torres, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, stood on the observation deck of the Federation's first joint species space station. Through the viewport, he could see ships from dozens of worlds working together to build a better future. Beside him, Elder Vestok watched Jiraki children play with human youngsters in the station's garden pods. The old alien's eyes glowed with contentment. Your species has changed the galaxy, Admiral. We just reminded everyone that some things are worth fighting for, Torres replied. And what will humanity do now that the war is over? Torres smiled as he watched the children play. Human and Jiraki side by side, building friendships that would last their lifetimes. Now we build something better than what came before. Together. In the depths of space, new ships bearing the emblems of free worlds spread out among the stars. They carried a simple message from humanity to the galaxy. Friends protect friends. Justice will be served, and no one fights alone.